that the claim that leaflets were put out alleging immigrants brought disease to the UK was absolute nonsense. Did you get it wrong, or did you lie under oath?
Dream of lying under oath. That's a very offensive suggestion which you shouldn't make. Absolutely shouldn't make. The truth is that I was asked about that leaflet, and I said to the barrister, if that leaflet existed, if you had it, you produce it. And of course, they should have produced it if it existed.
Well, you actually said you didn't recall
No, listen
it.
to the answer. I've never seen that leaflet, the original, and I'd like to see it. That's a photocopy. I'd like
This is a photocopy of the original, which you saw in Michael Crick's report. I'm happy for you to have a look at that, just to look through it. But I mean, I'm also happy to quote from it. Walter Hesketh's by-election leaflet says, "Coloured immigration threatens your children's health."
We've already had
all those
that.
terrible suggestions. Well, why
they
did you
asked me in the trial. No, they asked me in the trial whether that leaflet existed, and I said, which was absolutely true, that it was complete nonsense, and that was my recollection. It still is my recollection. I'm not even sure it's genuine, but if it is genuine, it doesn't reflect my views today, and this is entirely a red herring put out by the Daily Mail, and I'm astonished.
So you think this might be a hoax, this leaflet here, that I'm trying to get you to have a look at?
I've never seen the original.
Right.
We would have to... My lawyers have actually asked the Mail for the original, and it would be interesting to give it some forensic tests.
Well, the original is in 2 public libraries, and your name is on the bottom of it. You are legally responsible for it. Do you accept that?
This is what you say. We'd like to look at it. But in the meantime, assuming it is true, that does not reflect my view, absolutely. And this was 56 years ago, and it's an attempt by the Daily Mail to distract from what the real issue is, which is whether they are breaching the Data Protection Act.
Did you, at the time, in 1961, believe in sending immigrants home to Jamaica? Did you believe that?
No, as your quote already said, I believe that financial inducement should be offered to persuade them to go home. That is now completely academic because we're 50-odd years on, and it's no longer a possible question. And I think I should remind you of this, that this was in 1961. I ceased to have any involvement in my father's movement in 1963. I went into other areas. In 1982, you had the Conservative Party, Monday Club, had a committee for repatriation of immigrants. The secretary of that committee was Mr. Bercow, the Speaker of the House of Commons. He has also changed his view. You are entitled, as you get older, to change your view, and it's outrageous.
OK, but did you... I'm asking you about your view at the time. Did you believe that immigrants brought disease to the UK in 1961? Is that a belief you held?
I have no reason to believe that at all, then or now. I think...
And would you admit that those statements are racist?
I don't know about racist. They're deeply offensive. And
you don't think it's racist to say that immigrants bring disease to the UK?
They might be a completely same race. They might be an immigrant from somewhere like Canada or exactly the same. It's nothing to do with race. It's
no, this was particularly
immigration.
about coloured people. Coloured immigration threatens your children's health, is a claim in the leaflet that I put before you.
It doesn't say coloured immigrants bring leprosy.
This is the direct quote from the leaflet. Coloured immigration threatens your children's health.
Absolutely, but that's not...
You're saying that's not racist?
I think probably, yeah, I think that probably is racist. I will concede that completely. But
so would you issue an apology to the West Indians in Manchester, who must have been absolutely terrified?
I've no reason to apologise to anyone.
Please take your call afterwards. But I mean, you're not apologising to anyone for these racist statements? Statements you admit are racist? This
was a statement in a leaflet, which I'm not even sure is genuine, which would never reflect my view. It wouldn't reflect my view then or now, because I simply wouldn't dream of insulting people. A lot of people might be really shocked that you can't apologise for a leaflet that has your name on the bottom, which makes statements that you admit now are racist. If that leaflet is shown to be genuine, then I would certainly say it should not have been given. Absolutely. Will you apologise to West Indians living in Manchester? None of it's such nonsense that. Will you apologise? The question is... Why is that nonsense? People must have been terrified to see this leaflet circulating by the candidate that you backed, a candidate that you called quite a respectable man. He was an ex-policeman, former international athlete, very decent person as far as I was concerned, and I thought he was then, and I think he is now. You still think he's a decent person to put out a leaflet like this? The thing is, you're accusing me of putting... I'm the person who's got their name on the bottom of the leaflet. So you published the leaflet, you're legally responsible for it? Absolutely. If that leaflet's genuine, I'm responsible for it, and it shouldn't have been issued. And the point I make is this, that I think it's perfectly legitimate to say we don't want immigrants to come in, and people are doing that now about the EU. What is not legitimate is when they get here to insult them or to say something offensive or difficult. And that, if that's correct, should not have been said.
But as recently as 2 years ago, you said that Walter Hesketh was an entirely reasonable person. You stand by those claims even now, and yet he was circulating these views in this by-election campaign.
The thing is that I think he was an entirely reasonable person. Those views should not, certainly in modern context, have been circulated. Because you've got to see this in the context of the time. This is 50-odd years ago. People talk completely differently. This was before there was any act of Parliament to restrict immigration. You had the Commonwealth Immigration Act in 1962, where people referred to coloureds and so on. That was the talk of the time. It's changed a little bit since then.
So you accept that the views in this leaflet are racist. When did you stop endorsing racist views?
Stop 1963.
So you admit that you were a racist in the past?
No, I don't. You said endorsing racist views. If that's racist, I cannot say I didn't endorse it because I signed it. But I've never been a racist. I'm not a racist, never will be a racist.
But you published a racist leaflet?
In your view, yes. I mean, I think, you know, it's very disagreeable, but racism is where you're sort of attacking people because of their origins. That was an offensive statement about people bringing disease. Not quite the same thing.
You keep on changing your tune. You admitted it was a racist statement, and now you're trying to backtrack and say it's merely offensive.
Well, I think you could argue that it's racist, but that's not really what this is all about. And I mean, producing this now, 56 years later, and trying to distract from the Daily Mail and their activities. If you want to do an investigation, investigate the phone hacking, computer hacking, abuse of people like the Dowlers, the McCanns, and the...
Well,
why not do
this
that?
is a Daily Mail story, but we've checked it out independently. But is this leaflet one of the reasons that you're battling newspapers over their use of the Data Protection Act to erase your past, because you haven't fully owned up to your past?
Obviously not, because I didn't even know the leaflet existed when I had the News of the World case. And at the time...
Well, so you say.
Well, are you calling me a liar?
Well, I'm asking
Are you calling me a liar?
I'm asking you if you lied in court.
Obviously not.
Do you believe... Did you perjure yourself?
That is a most offensive question, which you shouldn't ask.
This is an offensive leaflet. Did you perjure yourself
no, this is
in the
an
High
offensive
Court?
question. I said that I didn't... I denied that leaflet. I challenged the leading counsel to produce it. If,
you were very sure that the leaflet didn't exist. You told the trial, if there was such a leaflet, you'd be able to produce it.
If you challenge leading counsel in the High Court to produce something, and you're wrong, it's a disaster. If I hadn't been absolutely certain that that leaflet didn't exist, I wouldn't have challenged him to produce it.
Now the leaflet has been produced, though. Are you worried that you might have perjured yourself in court?
No, because, oh dear, perjury is saying something you should think is untrue, you know is untrue. I said something which I knew in my own mind was true. It's no question of perjury. It's because it's a really stupid and offensive question to ask that. And to suggest that I perjured myself is really stupid and offensive.
Well, let me ask you one more question.
Yeah, go on.
Are you a fit and proper person to be funding the office of the Deputy Labour leader, Tom Watson?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Will you give him more money?
Why should I not support Tom Watson, who's probably one of the most honest and courageous politicians we've got?
He might be rather troubled that you've published a racist leaflet.
I think you've already had his answer.
Will you give him more money?
Yes, absolutely.
Max Mosley, thank you very much for